In recent days, tensions between the United States and China have escalated dramatically, marking a significant chapter in the ongoing trade war that has reshaped global commerce. As former President Donald Trump reasserts his stance on tariffs and trade policies, the implications of these developments are resonating through various sectors, particularly in e-commerce and international relations. The U.S. Postal Service recently made headlines by temporarily halting incoming packages from China and Hong Kong, a move that occurred just as Trump reiterated his willingness to impose further tariffs on Chinese imports. This suspension, which was lifted the following day, came amid accusations from Beijing of unreasonable suppression and was seen as a direct consequence of Trump's aggressive trade policies, including the elimination of the de minimis duty-free exemption for low-value packages. In 2023, reports indicated that approximately 30% of small packages entering the U.S. originated from Chinese e-commerce giants like Shein and Temu, underscoring the potential impact on American consumers and retailers reliant on these imports. China's foreign ministry expressed strong dissatisfaction and resolute opposition to the U.S. measures, framing them as an attempt to politicize trade. Spokesperson Lin Jian emphasized that the Chinese government views its counter-tariffs as necessary for protecting its economic interests, while simultaneously warning that trade wars yield no winners. This sentiment was echoed when the World Trade Organization confirmed that China had initiated a dispute regarding the newly imposed levies, which Beijing characterized as malicious. As the trade war intensifies, Trump's administration has not only targeted China but also other significant trading partners, including Mexico and Canada. Recent negotiations led to a temporary pause on tariffs against these countries, contingent on their commitments to enhance border security measures related to drug trafficking. This complex web of tariffs and negotiations illustrates the multifaceted approach the Trump administration is taking in its second term, with trade policy becoming a central pillar of its foreign relations strategy. Professor Yiling Tan from Oxford University has pointed out the potential self-defeating nature of such tariffs, noting that China has actively sought alternative markets for its agricultural imports in response to previous tariffs. As the Trump administration continues to enforce its trade agenda, it faces growing challenges from not only international competitors but also domestic stakeholders who may be adversely affected by increased costs and supply chain disruptions. In a broader context, Trump's recent rhetoric has also extended to foreign policy, particularly regarding the ongoing conflict in Gaza. His controversial suggestion that the U.S. would take over the Gaza Strip has drawn significant criticism and prompted officials to clarify that no American troops would be needed for such an operation. The president's remarks reflect a dramatic shift in U.S. foreign policy, suggesting a willingness to engage in direct intervention in complex geopolitical conflicts, which may further complicate international relations. As the trade war continues to unfold, the repercussions are likely to be felt across multiple sectors, from technology to energy. With China diversifying its trade relationships and the U.S. grappling with its own economic dependencies, the future of this conflict remains uncertain. Stakeholders on both sides of the Pacific will be closely monitoring these developments, as the stakes are high for global stability and economic growth. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether negotiations can yield a more constructive path forward, or if the escalation will continue complicating an already intricate web of international trade and diplomacy. The renewed tensions in the U.S.-China trade relationship have sparked widespread concern about the potential for a full-scale trade war between the world's two largest economies. In a recent series of retaliatory tariffs, the U.S. implemented a 10% levy on a range of Chinese imports, prompting China to respond with its own tariffs on U.S. goods, including coal, natural gas, and crude oil. This back-and-forth has raised alarms among economists and market analysts, who fear the implications of escalating hostilities on global trade and economic stability. Despite the recent skirmishes, some experts view this phase as a negotiation tactic rather than a prelude to an all-out conflict. William Reich, a trade policy expert and former U.S. Undersecretary of Commerce, noted that the relatively modest tariff imposed by the U.S. indicates a desire to keep diplomatic channels open.
I think Mr. Trump backed off bigger Chinese tariffs because it became clear to him that it would eliminate any possibility of negotiation, Reinsch explained.
This sentiment was echoed by Wall Street analysts who are betting that neither President Trump nor Chinese President Xi Jinping is keen to initiate a mutually destructive economic war. As tensions rise, the potential impact on U.S. consumers becomes increasingly concerning.
Financial strategist Bill Dendy warned that if tariffs continue to escalate, American consumers could see a significant increase in the prices of everyday goods.
The Peterson Institute for International Economics estimated that the implementation of the 10% tariff could cost the average U.S. household over $1,200 annually. Dendy emphasized that it is the consumer who ultimately bears the cost of these tariffs as industries with tight margins struggle to absorb increased expenses.
China's response has included not only tariffs but also restrictions on exports of critical minerals and an antitrust investigation into Google, signaling that Beijing is willing to employ a variety of tools in this economic skirmish.
Julian Evans Pritchard, head of China economics at Capital Economics, noted that China's retaliatory measures are designed to send a message without inflicting severe damage. An indication that both sides may prefer to avoid a full-blown trade war. The situation is further complicated by the broader economic context in which both nations find themselves. China's economy has been under strain for several years, facing issues such as deflation, high youth unemployment, and a slowing growth rate. Analysts warned that a prolonged trade conflict could exacerbate these challenges.
Desmond Lotman from the American Enterprise Institute pointed out that the Chinese economy, once a global growth engine, is now in a precarious state.
Even before the latest round of the U.S.-China trade war, the Chinese economy was in deep trouble, he noted, highlighting the potential for a lost economic decade similar to what Japan experienced in the 1990s. While Singapore appears unlikely to be directly targeted by U.S. tariffs due to its trade surplus with the U.S., the city-state's foreign minister Vivian Balakrishnan cautioned that the nation could still be caught in the crossfire of U.S.-China tensions.
Analysts suggest that Singapore's small open economy could suffer indirectly from disruptions in global supply chains and trade dynamics. Looking ahead, the potential for further conflict remains, and both nations will need to navigate a complex landscape of economic diplomacy.
Reinsch believes that discussions between Trump and Xi are essential for reaching a resolution that could eventually lead to a rollback of tariffs. However, the historical context of the trade relationship, marked by repeated retaliatory measures, raises questions about whether meaningful negotiations can be achieved. As the U.S.-China trade tensions continue to unfold,
the global economic landscape remains uncertain.
The stakes are high not only for the two nations involved but also for other economies that depend on stable trade relations. The coming months will be crucial in determining whether both sides can find common ground or if they will plunge deeper into a trade conflict that could reshape the international economic order for years to come. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the increasing tension between the United States and China has taken center stage, particularly in the realm of military and economic strategies. This ongoing rivalry is marked by significant developments, including the recent addition of Tencent, a Chinese tech giant, to a blacklist of companies with alleged ties to the Chinese military, and China's rapid military preparations in response to perceived threats from the U.S. under President Donald Trump's renewed administration.
On February 6, 2025,
the U.S. Defense Department updated its Section 1260H list, which now includes Tencent, the parent company of WeChat, as part of its scrutiny over companies contributing to China's military-civil fusion strategy. This strategy aims to modernize the Chinese military through collaboration with private enterprises.
Tencent responded to its inclusion by labeling it a mistake and expressed readiness to engage with the Pentagon to clarify any misunderstandings.
The company emphasized its non-military status, stating, "We are not a military company or supplier." Despite this, the move has had immediate financial repercussions, with Tencent shares plummeting nearly 7%, resulting in a loss of approximately $35.4 billion in market value.
This action by the U.S. follows a series of retaliatory measures from China.
which has recently imposed export bans on critical technology and products to multiple American defense firms amid escalating trade tensions. The growing friction between the two nations is underscored by the complex web of economic sanctions and military posturing that has characterized their relationship. As Trump embarks on his second term, his administration appears poised to intensify economic pressures on China, potentially leading to a renewed cycle of retaliation. In a strategic response to these pressures, China has been accelerating its military buildup, particularly in relation to Taiwan, a focal point in the US-China rivalry. Recent satellite imagery reveals the rapid construction of specialized amphibious assault barges at the Guangzhou shipyard. These vessels, reminiscent of the Mulberry harbors utilized during World War II, are designed to facilitate direct military landings on Taiwan's shores, bypassing traditional landing zones that may be heavily fortified. Experts suggest that these barges represent a significant enhancement of China's amphibious assault capabilities, complicating Taiwan's defensive calculations and raising the stakes for U.S. involvement in the region. The strategic implications of these developments are profound. China's military preparations serve not only as a deterrent against U.S. economic maneuvers but also as a reminder of its resolve to defend its territorial claims. The presence of these barges signals to Washington that economic coercion could provoke a robust military response, thus intertwining economic and military strategies into a single cohesive approach aimed at countering U.S. dominance. This evolving situation reflects a fundamental shift in how both nations view their engagement with one another. As Trump's policies risk igniting a cycle of military and economic escalation, China is prepared to leverage its military capabilities to counteract what it perceives as aggressive economic tactics from the U.S. By aligning military readiness with economic strategy, Beijing is not merely preparing for potential conflict but is making a calculated statement of intent. The consequences of economic warfare could extend far beyond financial losses. As we look to the future, the dynamics of US-China relations will likely continue to be shaped by this interplay of military and economic power. With Taiwan as a critical flashpoint, both sides must navigate a precarious landscape where actions taken in one domain will inevitably reverberate into the other. The global community watches with bated breath as the outcomes of these strategic maneuvers will have lasting implications for international stability and security.